Two elite warrior brotherhoods. One hypothetical battlefield. Who wins? On one side, the Varangian Guard, towering axe-wielding warriors, forged in the icy north and hardened in the service of Byzantine emperors. On the other, the Knights Templar, armored holy knights, whose very presence struck fear into the hearts of enemies during the Crusades. They never crossed swords in real history, but what if they did? What would happen if these two legendary forces met in a clash of steel, strategy, and sheer willpower? Could Norse brutality and Byzantine discipline overpower the religious fervor and military order of the Templars? Or would the faith-driven tactics of the Crusaders hold firm against the fury of the North? This isn't just a nerdy daydream, it's a historical puzzle that fascinates scholars and military tacticians alike. Both groups served empires, upheld unique codes of loyalty, and represented the pinnacle of elite warfare in their eras. But they were forged in entirely different crucibles of conflict. In this video, we break down what made each warrior elite, their origins, their training, their weapons, their mindset, and then we imagine the impossible and epic face-off that never happened, but could have changed history forever. Before they were elite imperial bodyguards, the Varangians were fearsome Norsemen Vikings who sailed not west to plunder Britain, but east to carve out reputations in the courts of Constantinople. By the 10th century, these warriors formed the Varangian Guard, the personal protectors of Byzantine emperors. Loyalty, strength, and sheer intimidation were their trademarks. Most were Scandinavian, later joined by Anglo-Saxons after the Norman conquest of England. Standing taller and often better fed than local soldiers, they were hand-picked for their size, skill, and savagery. Their weapon of choice? The fearsome Dane, axe taller than a man, capable of cleaving both shields and skulls in a single swing. But brute force wasn't all they brought. These warriors adapted quickly to Byzantine discipline and formations, training alongside some of the most sophisticated armies in the medieval world. They learned to fight in tight ranks, guard palaces, and charge into the chaos of battle with terrifying precision and fury. Perhaps most terrifying, they weren't mercenaries. They swore personal oaths to the emperor and died for honor and pay in solid gold. Imagine facing a wall of armored giants, each with a two-handed axe, elite training, and nothing to lose. Now enter the battlefield, the Knights Templar. Formed in the early 12th century during the First Crusade, these warrior monks were more than just knights. They were a religious military order sworn to defend Christian pilgrims and the Holy Land. But don't let the monk robes fool you. Beneath them were battle-hardened veterans, clad in chainmail, wielding swords, and riding into war with fanatical purpose. Templars were among the most disciplined soldiers of their time. Their training was relentless, their ranks highly organized. They lived by a strict code of obedience, chastity, and poverty, yet commanded immense financial resources, lands, and political influence. Their armor was top tier for the era. Chainmail hauberks, iron helmets, kite shields, and broadswords made them formidable in both defense and attack. On the battlefield, they often led the charge, using tight wedge formations to break enemy lines. Their presence inspired allies and terrified foes. They didn't retreat easily, and their cohesion under pressure made them devastating in both open-field combat and siege warfare. But their true weapon was belief. They fought with the conviction that dying in battle for God guaranteed eternal life. Against that kind of resolve, even the strongest army had to think twice. The Varangian Guard wielded the massive Dainaxia, brutal two-handed weapon capable of splitting shields and helmets in one blow. They wore lamellar or chainmail armor with round shields, often reinforced with decorative but deadly metalwork. The Knights Templar, meanwhile, preferred broadswords, lances, and kite shields, protected by layered chainmail, iron helmets, and tabards marked with the Red Cross. In close quarters, the Varangians' axe was devastating, but Templars had more versatility with lance and sword, especially in cavalry charges. The Varangians were heavy infantry specialists, shock troops, who smashed through enemy lines and held key positions. They adapted to Byzantine battlefield formations and fought with brutal cohesion. The Templars operated more like special forces, highly mobile, leading cavalry assaults, coordinating logistics, and executing complex maneuvers with near-religious discipline and efficiency. Both units were unwavering. The Varangians swore loyalty to the emperor and were rewarded with gold and glory. The Templars, driven by deep faith, saw death in battle as the ultimate sacrifice guaranteeing eternal salvation. Picture the scene: a flat plain under a crimson sky. On one side, a wall of Varangian stall, grim and ready, axes raised. On the other, Templar cavalry gleaming in white and red, their lances angled for the charge. What happens next? In open combat, the Templars' cavalry edge could be decisive early on. A well-coordinated charge might disrupt the Varangian line, but only if the terrain favors speed. The Varangians, however, thrived in defensive positions and close-quarters brawls. If they hold the line, their two-handed axes and shield walls could decimate the Templar front line once it breaks. Tactically, the Templars bring more structure and long-term battlefield control, especially with reinforcements and sieging capabilities. The Varangians bring unmatched aggression and psychological shock. No army wanted to be on the receiving end of their assault. The winner? If it's a siege or sustained campaign, edge goes to the Templars. But in a sudden battlefield collision steel to steel, the Varangians might just carve out a win through sheer ferocity and grit. Ultimately, the true victor is history itself for producing two of the most elite, terrifying, and iconic warrior brotherhoods ever known. So, who do you think would win? Tell us in the comments.